that, I would like to welcome you to today's online launch of MECLA, the Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance. Before going any further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I'm speaking to you from Gadigal land today, and I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples participating today. Today is a big day for many of us who have been working to establish this alliance. People from the private sector, from state and local governments, from NGOs, the research sector, ratings bodies, consultancies and the professions. All from within the construction and building ecosystem, and all coming together with a common goal: to drive reductions in embodied carbon in the building and construction industry. My name is Hudson Worsley from Precinct, and I have the honour of being MECLA's chair. I would like to introduce Monica Richter from WWF, who is without question the driving force behind MECLA. Monica is a name and face probably most of you will recognise. She has worked so hard to bring us together. I think her email traffic and phone records on this alliance alone must now fill their own data warehouse. Thank you, Monica. And helping MECLA grow into a national alliance, I'd like to welcome and thank Belinda Whelan, who is Director Strategic Projects from Climate Kick Australia, an important body helping us grow our own ecosystem broader. I'd also like to thank Turlo Guerin from New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment.
So touch on the yeah.
Turlo's low emission
the two green buttons
has kicked MECLA along with seed funding, and he plays an important
I would thought so, but
of government navigator, helping connect us with the right people inside New South Wales government as we get going. Now, a couple of mics may not be on mute, so please could I ask you just to check you're on mute? The purpose of today's event is twofold. Firstly, it's here to launch MECLA, to thank the 41 organisations that have signed on as founding partners. That's an amazing number, 41 organisations. It's to celebrate what we've done so far and to signal to the construction sector that there is a genuine willingness to drive change and cut embodied emissions. Secondly, and as is our mantra, this is a do tank. So the second part of today is to get back into the working groups and to continue to refine the objectives and deliverables of each group. You'll keep hearing me talk.
I just can't see them because it's out of my control.
Today we launch our branding, our logo, our colour palette, our website, the LinkedIn profile. There's even a video. And we celebrate that this broad coalition has formed our alliance. If you look at the slide coming with the range of logos from our members, I think you'll understand why I call that a broad coalition. Thank you very much to these founders. It's not easy getting internal sign-off for a lot of organisations. Having been through that myself, I appreciate that. But note also that the window to join as a founding member is not shut. We recognise it takes time, so there are a couple of weeks remaining to do this. Please stay in touch and in contact with Monica or myself. We would love to welcome you to the fold. What have we done so far? Well, we've convened 3 MECLA meetings, and in doing so have defined our purpose and objectives and established an ethical framework to guide us. We've established our governance mechanisms. We've spread the word and advocated for participation and commitment. We've formed working groups which have all met several times. This is where the doing really takes place. By that, I mean the barriers to low carbon construction materials are being identified and tackled. Let me outline what those working groups are doing to really show what doing means. Working group 1, looking at demand side response. So that's creating a clear, consistent and significantly increased demand for low and no embodied carbon materials so that suppliers are confident to invest in decarbonisation innovation. Working Group 2 is defining best practice evaluation framework for embodied carbon benchmarking in Australia. Working Group 3 is building and capturing the knowledge base to provide a platform that will enable the sharing and rapid expansion of knowledge around opportunities and capabilities in the sector. Working Group 4 is developing common language for design specifications, procurement guidelines and tendering criteria to make it easier to specify, procure and supply low carbon building materials. And our Working Group 5 is made up of the material side. So we've got subgroups in steel, cement and concrete, aluminium, and then other materials. So timber, bricks, asphalt, recycled and reformed materials, including plastics and glass and so on. Right, that's the doing when I talk about a do tank. Let's have a look at today's agenda and get underway. After this brief introduction, we'll enjoy a short breakout. I guess think of it as the virtual equivalent to bumping into people at the coffee cart before heading into a plenary session at a conference. We'll then hear from Dermot O'Gorman, the WWF CEO. We'll view the MECLA launch video. We'll then hear from Mike O'Flynn, Director Sustainability Programs at the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. Followed by two very engaging guest speakers. Lisa McLean, CEO of New South Wales Circular, will discuss the importance of the circular economy thinking in driving the decarbonisation agenda in the built environment. And Jonas Bankston, CEO and founder of Edge Environment, will talk about the size of the opportunity. That'll end part one, and we'll then move into part two, the do tank and working groups. A little housekeeping. I think we're all familiar with Zoom now, but as I've mentioned, please keep yourself on mute. Please have your full name in the Zoom label. Use the chat function for comments and questions to be sent through for the Q&A function. Note that we are recording this event. It's a useful reference for us to come back to. And really, that's it. So Monica, can we burst out now into our breakout groups, have a bit of random networking and say good day to one another?
Great, thanks Belinda. I'll hand that over to you. Very short, 90-second intro.
Yes, and I can only do a max 50 rooms, and so there will be around 3 people in each room.
Terrific.
Just
fantastic.
People right now.
3 is right on the money. Nice work.
And I've pressed the open all rooms.
We can't see it.
No, I know. For some reason, it doesn't seem to be. It's not opening.
Just wondering if you pause recording. I'm not sure if pausing recording might.
No, that won't make a difference.
Okay. Okay.
Monica, it's not opening the rooms. Unfortunately, it seems to be stuck. Have you got access to the breakouts, Monica?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Maybe they're going now.
Yes, they are. I'm joined. All right.
Is anyone there? I'm just getting a long list.
Yeah, I'm getting that too. I think it might be placing us in the rooms possibly.
I think because it's such a long,
Yeah.
It's because there's so many people, it's just taking time to assign.
Yeah, you can see the participant
See
list
the numbers
slowly. Yeah.
This is using up our 90 seconds.
I'll delay it a few more seconds.
As as we're passing out, I have to observe that every time I turn on Radio National now, climate, transition, structural change, carbon, it is on every hour that Radio National is broadcasting. 10 years ago, my gosh, I could only hope for that. So our time is now. This is the transition, and it's great to be on the front foot, to be anticipating that change and being ready for the opportunity. I think this group is, really seizing that. So thank you, everybody, while we wait.
Just wait till Joe Biden makes his announcement today as well. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's a big day, and it's not an accident that we've timed today for that. So it's good to be part of it, isn't it?
I think we can say that breakout rooms thing is not working. Participants.
I think it's, shall I close all the rooms,
Well,
Mark?
close the rooms and invite everybody back.
So we've broken Zoom.
Because of the large numbers, I think maybe.
That's okay. And a bit of adaptive management as we go is absolutely fine. Yeah.
Now that was a planned icebreaker, wasn't it, Hudson? That whole can we pivot? Can we? We've got to put that word in somewhere.
Can we deal with complexity and imperfection? And
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. But look, we can clearly. Thank you for your patience and giving us a little bit of slack there. That hasn't worked. So be it. Monica, is Dermot standing by, ready to talk to us with the panda hat on?
As long as I know Dermot's in, so as long as he comes back into the main room.
I'm Hudson, I'm back in the main room.
Wonderful, excellent. Wonderful. All right, well, Dermot, is everybody in the room now, do you think?
We're back up to 148, which is very close to where we were as we went.
Well, Dermot, can I please hand over to you? It is wonderful to have your time here. Dermot is CEO of WWF Australia. He celebrated his 10-year anniversary last year. He's also our landlord. He is the chair of WWF Asia Pacific CEO Group, on the board of the Australian Council for International Development, and was the CEO of WWF China in the early, mid to late 2000s. Dermot strongly promotes innovative and divergent thinking, and I think that sums up very much what we're doing in our ecosystem of experts bringing MECLA together. So Dermot, can I hand over to you, please?
Great. Thank you very much, Hudson. Thank you to Zoom. And I'd also start with acknowledging the land that I'm on here today, the Gadigal people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. 22nd of April, 1970 was the very first Earth Day, and today is the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. So happy Earth Day to all 150 of you. I don't think I need to tell you the importance of Earth Day in the current context, given the climate emergency, the biodiversity crisis, and the growing climate inequity. But today is also a special day in climate world, because today is the US President Joe Biden's climate summit, where we've got leaders from around the world, including China, coming together around great ambition in climate. In fact, I think the stat 75% of all global GDP has committed to net zero targets is a pretty amazing stat to think about. All of Australia's main trading partners have net zero targets. The financial markets around the world are rallying around net zero as we move into the Paris Agreement in Glasgow towards the end of the year, with an acceleration to decarbonise our economy. The world is moving, and so are Australian states. I had a wonderful conversation with the WA Energy Minister yesterday, who gave me an amazing update on what WA's ambition is. They want to become the green steel state of Australia. And I think sitting here in Sydney, we have an energy minister who has equal ambition and has shown amazing leadership in this space as well. So I think that the ambition and leadership by states is super exciting. So we know this is a critical decade. I would sort of say that in this next decade, we need to achieve more in terms of sustainable development than we've achieved in the last 51 years since Earth Day was established. And that's a big challenge when it comes to scale. Governments and corporations are going to play a critical role here. And NGOs, academia and civil society can help. WWF 2 years ago set up a initiative around how to help Australia to become a leading global exporter and investor in renewable energy, and to do that well before 2050. In fact, to become a 700% renewable energy exporting superpower. And that innovation piece that Hudson talked about is going to be critical. And that's why today I believe is so important. So to bring us to the event today, we are formally launching the Materials and Embedded Carbon Leaders Alliance. Congratulations to all the 41 founding members and to the working groups that have got us here today. It's an amazing job. Together, we're working across supply chains and industry sectors, which is never easy, to achieve ambitious targets and to help Australia demonstrate that we can deliver not only our fair share towards a zero carbon future, but go well beyond that through our ambition to become a renewable energy exporting superpower to help other countries, particularly in our region, to get there as well. I think I'm telling you what you already know, in that market transformation can be difficult and it can be slow, but the partners in the room here are exactly the type of partners who are going to make this happen. I'd like to particularly thank the New South Wales government for not only their leadership, but investment into this initiative, to our friends at Climate Kick, to all 41 foundation partners, and to also our great friends at Precinct, Hudson and Ben. It's been a great team effort. This is a super important initiative if Australia is going to deliver on its commitment around or the opportunity around advanced manufacturing. And there is a race around the world to produce materials that are carbon neutral. And so I wish you well for today's conversation. And we are 100% committed to be working with all of you to help achieve the ambition that MECLA has. Thanks so much and good luck for today.
Thank you, Dermot. Yes, I think having the honest broker of WWF in the middle there, holding us together, bringing us together, is a wonderful value to bring. And it's encouraging that we're talking innovation, collaboration. Clearly, collaboration is needed because of the very fragmented ecosystem that makes up our industry sector. And it's wonderful to be together. Now, one of the exciting sizzle bits of today's launch is our video. And so, Monica, can I ask you to take that away? I'm looking forward to this. Oh, here we go.
Is there supposed to be sound?
We're not getting sound. I think probably you need to reshare and tick that box which says share computer sound.
So we know the transition in the energy sector is well underway. We're moving from fossil fuel-based energy around to renewables. We now want to replicate that in construction materials. So we set MECLA up as an industry group to cut carbon out of the construction sector.
Embodied carbon is a huge challenge for our industry. No developer, designer, engineer or consultant supplier can do it alone. MECLA is a chance to collaborate as an industry and a chance to innovate together.
By the New South Wales Government sponsoring this and WWF running it, it gives us that opportunity to actually pool resources, pool intellect, try and solve this together rather than trying to do it in our own little silos, which will never work. The thing that's great about MECLA being new is it's ours to create, it's ours to design, and by participating in it, being a founding member, being active in the working groups, you can actually shape the way that it goes.
Wow, I've got goosebumps after that. Thank you, WWF, for preparing that. That really does sum us up, doesn't it? I think if anybody in your host organisations, in your offices or wherever or outside says, what's MECLA about? I reckon that link sums it up very nicely. So thank you so much for the production of that video. That's fantastic. Really puts a mark of what we're on about. So thank you. And Anne Austin at Lend Lease gets a shout out because she and her team with Jeremy just really have been stalwarts to get us moving with intellectual grunt and time. So thank you to that. And with such clarity in what you're saying, maybe we'll just throw the media referrals to you. I think that was terrific. So thank you. Now, Mick O'Flynn from Department of Planning, Industry and Environment is to speak to us now. I believe you're online. Yes, fantastic. Mick, can I hand over to you, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Hudson. I won't take too much time here. I just wanted to, on behalf of the New South Wales Government, sort of welcome and congratulate everyone on today's milestone achievement. We're really happy with the launch of MECLA. From the New South Wales Government point of view, this is part of a program that we are running, which is low emission building materials. This is a cornerstone component of that program that we're funding. And it's been amazing how much enthusiasm and momentum this has generated, as witnessed by the number of people here today and by the 41 founding members. So we're delighted to help launch this today. A couple of quick comments I'd like to make. Just in terms of context from the New South Wales Government point of view, this is part of the broader net zero plan, which as Dermot mentioned before, our New South Wales Government Minister for the Energy and Environment, Matt Keane, has been pretty energetic around net zero and making some pretty big strides in helping New South Wales Government meet its net zero by 2050 target. There's a broad suite of things in that program. One of the things I would like to mention is recently announced the Industry and Innovation program, which is got close relationships with this, with the low emission building materials and MECLA, because some of the producers of building materials will be able to access the support that's under that $750 million program. So we're really happy that that there will be ongoing connections between those two components of the net zero plan. One of the things I really want to stress is not just the numbers of people that have been involved, but the fact that there's people from all up and down the supply chain. There's the procurers of building materials and the suppliers and other stakeholders in that game have all joined in. We were particularly focused on this part of our program to work on the demand side, but it's really pleasing to see that there's a whole lot of demand side players as well as the supply side players who've joined up to commit to MECLA. One of the things that last thing I'll comment I'll make was that we're really pleased as the video pointed out really well, that this is predominantly an industry-led initiative. The government, New South Wales government, is really pleased to support and provide the some of the funding to help get this off the ground. But it's really encouraging. It's fantastic to see that it's an industry-led initiative, and we're sure that that will help help give it longevity and enduring impact right across New South Wales, and indeed probably across Australia. We'll be more than happy if this program goes beyond the shores of New South Wales and becomes an Australian-wide thing. That would be wonderful from our point of view. My last quick comment is just to acknowledge the amazing leadership from WWF in this program. I know that they've been contributing really actively in this game for quite a while, and we're really happy to be partnering with WWF to help make MECLA a clear and present thing for a long time that will have a huge impact on our net zero ambitions. That's all I want to say, Hudson. So I just reiterate, delighted to be here and helping with the launch of this amazing initiative. Now back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mick. And yes, the New South Wales government support is noted and welcomed. I think the beautiful thing here is that with that seed, the industry is then growing, taking it from there. And when I think in a global context, the PRI, Principles of Responsible Investment based in Europe, they talk about the inevitable policy response that is likely to come as governments around the world have to respond to climate emergency. The great thing with MECLA is we're ahead of that inevitable policy response. This is getting in front and leading that from the industry up and bringing government as well. Procurement of government is clearly one of the big levers in changing the embodied carbon in construction. And so having you as a seed, but also a key participant, is vital to the collaboration that we're talking about. So thank you very much. Now, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker, Lisa McLean. Lisa is the CEO of New South Wales Circular, a government-funded circular economy innovation body leading the transition to a zero carbon circular economy in New South Wales and Australia. Lisa, can you, yes, your screen sharing, can we now bring you up? Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm absolutely thrilled with the progress and the work that's been done so far by MECLA. Before I start, I just want to also acknowledge the lands, Indigenous lands on which I am on at the moment, which is the Wallumattagal people, and pay my respects to Indigenous people, past and present, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So yes, we are a new organisation, as Holly said. We are very, very much focused on the role of circular economy in the whole decarbonised agenda, because firstly, we can't actually reduce emissions unless we have a circular economy. And I know that I'm just going to jump ahead to this slide because I know we're short on time. We know that the renewable energy transition is really going to tackle probably about 55% of those emissions reductions we need to achieve to meet Paris targets. But the rest of those emissions are locked in products. They're locked in steel, cement, plastics, aluminium, food and agricultural approaches. So New South Wales Circular is very much focused on how we target this 45% of emissions and how we work with sectors to do it. And about, some of you may be aware of the term circular economy in terms of how we manage waste. Circular economy is actually an economic framework. And about 7 years ago, the World Economic Forum set up the World Circular Economy Forum to build awareness around this new economic framework that's coming. It's been driven both top down through policy, through resource constraints, but also bottom up through the technology transformation, which is seeing, you know, infrastructure and services getting smaller, more deployable, our ability to actually get free energy from the sun, to store it, to put downward pressure on our energy costs that way. Infrastructure is coming that's the size of a fridge, for example, small fridge that can recycle all the water in our home. We're getting shared mobility, which is coming. So these sharing and reuse business models are also transforming and disrupting our current linear infrastructure models. So circular economy set up by the World Economic Forum is very much a response, an economic framework that responds to sharing and reuse. How do we understand it? How do we integrate it into our economic frameworks, into our policies and our legislation? How do we also get regulators to understand and promote sharing and reuse? Because at the moment, for example, you know, we've got near monopolies in most of our infrastructure and infrastructure sectors. How do we encourage and promote recycling of water? How do we promote shared mobility? How do we promote that local generation and storage of energy and so forth? So the framework for circular economy is much greater and wider than just waste. It really does sit across our whole economy, and that's what New South Wales Circular is very much focusing on. I'll go back to a couple of slides just to say that for us, the climate crisis we're facing, there's not just one crisis. Yes, we have a carbon crisis and we're understanding that, we're actually doing stuff about it, we're measuring it, but it's not just, it can't just be tackled in isolation. We also have a biodiversity crisis, which in many ways is going to be potentially more catastrophic and irreversible. But of course, we've got this consumption crisis as well. And that's what the circular economic framework tackles. It's a new way in which we can consume. It's a new way in which we can keep resources in the market longer to extract more value and to create new jobs and to drive new investment. And given that we are going to have 50 billion people on the planet, 10 billion people on the planet by 2050, we're obviously not going to have enough resources to continue our current linear approach. So that's why the market's responding. And that's why we really need to be creating economic and market frameworks that understand and enable circular economy and sharing and reuse business models. It's a massive economic opportunity. You will have seen reports out recently. I think last year we were talking about a $210 billion opportunity. That opportunity is now looking like a $2 trillion boost to the Australian economy in the next 20 years. And so the opportunities are really substantial, and we do have a perfect storm to start this transition to keeping our resources in the market longer across all sectors. The perfect storm is COVID, an impact on our the geopolitics that's occurring, how it's impacting on our waste and China's sword response. What are we doing with that waste? But also it's just the common sense of the huge value that's at the moment locked in items that are going to landfill. And you would know that in your own industries, in construction industry, it's a huge part of this conversation. It's also in, you know, if we look at e-waste and we look at e-waste and we look at solar panels, for example, you've got silver, you've got gold, you've got silicon locked away in there, huge value, yet it's all just getting landfilled. So the opportunity is massive. And in terms of an economic framework that can tackle the sustainability, the sustainable development goals, I have an exercise that I usually go through on this, but just from time constraints, we won't do it, but enough to say that circular economy directly and indirectly tackles all of these sustainable development goals, pretty much all of them. So it's a very robust approach to grow our economy in a resource-constrained future and tackle those equity and affordability issues that are important to all of us. I mentioned New South Wales Circular. Our vision is actually a New South Wales circular economy. So the approach that we're taking to achieve that is looking at 3 areas, and the middle one in particular is something I want to talk about with you all. I think we've got a really important role to play in partnership with MECLA, and I was looking for our logo there, but really happy just to whack our logo on and support this brilliant initiative. The first area that we're focusing on is the metrics. How do we actually measure circular economy? And how do we look at that, not just from an infrastructure perspective, but a financial perspective? How do we understand what are those circular assets that we can invest in? And how do we create circular credit and finance? The circular supply chain component is really gritty stuff. This is looking at demand and supply side and reaching our arms around all of the players that we need. We've started in hospital plastics. We have 5 circular supply chains that we're going to be working on over the next 3 years, and the first 3 are this year. But I would like to add construction to this, and I think that could be a really good collaborative point with you all. What we do in it, we have a very robust program that brings together circular suppliers, circular buyers. And in our hospital example, we had, we just narrowed it down to 2 plastic items, just the lids of needles and the pill cups. And we looked at how to collect them, create clean streams, how to get them transported to an advanced manufacturer. Who is that advanced manufacturer? How many jobs can they grow out of that? What products can they create out of that? And then who's going to buy those products? What are those economic savings? So we come up with a very detailed program and a very detailed playbook that can show other hospitals how to collect it, how to do that. But the clever thing about it is that the 2 plastics that we've collected in this example, there's probably 200,000 items that can also be, that can be expanded to. It's the same materials. So we bring in researchers, we have our organizations that commit to it, we have the advanced manufacturing, and we look at the barriers as well. So we have a detailed playbook on how to do it, and then we have a high level spotlight on that industry, what that would look like if we expanded that across New South Wales and Australia. What's that economic opportunity? So I understand we're a bit behind schedule, so I'm going to leave it at that. Enough to say that I think that if I go to my last slide here, the circular economy narrative is very, very important. And I think for MECLA, this is also a really exciting opportunity to understand circular economy. It's very much a bipartisan narrative. It steps us away from just the carbon discussion. We need circular economy to get those extra carbon emissions reductions. So I'd love to hear from you all. Look forward to working with MECLA. Congratulate you on this fantastic group that you've created and the agenda that you've got ahead of you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. That's inspiring. I admire the breadth there, that it's not just carbon, it's also biodiversity, it's consumption, and it's opportunity. I think opportunity is a word we keep hearing here because any transition and change brings with it that opportunity. MECLA is about getting on the front foot with that. And I think from a values alignment, but also an objective side of things and an approach mindset, we're well aligned. So let's continue talking. Let's get your brand among ours in the logos there to show that collaboration and involve you perhaps in some of the working groups. I think procurement is a key lever. And as you've said, supply chains, it's related, and I would love to see that conversation continue. And if construction can become an exemplar for circular economy, the way that the hospital setting is, well, yeah, the volume of materials is huge. So let's keep talking on that. That would be terrific.
Yep, that'd be great, Hudson. And I should just quickly add that we have a number of task forces. We have one across the state government, which has identified procurement already in data as the focus for circular economy. And we also have a finance task force, which is looking at how to create credit and finance for big, large scale projects. So we really happily embrace that. And I think construction should be up there. So look forward to it.
Wonderful. And touching on finance, it's no accident that the Clean Energy Finance Corporation is involved in the call today and has been involved in many of our discussions, because financing the transition and getting innovation to be commercially viable and mainstreamed is one of those transition tasks. So very keen to have broader conversations with you very soon. All right, so thank you for that. Now, let me move on to our next guest speaker. Jonas Bengtsson is the CEO and co-founder of Edge Environment, with experience in Europe, North and South America, Australia and New Zealand. He is a leading light in the building product information ratings platforms and is the leading author for a yet to be released CEFC, good segue there, CEFC report on the size and opportunity for reducing carbon in the building sector. Again, that word opportunity keeps coming up. Jonas, can I hand over to you? Are you ready to share slides?
Sure, I hope so.
Wonderful.
Says it's failed here to share. I don't know if I might need permission potentially to share. Let me try again.
Okay.
There we go.
Looking good. Thank you. Really
Thanks, Hudson, and obviously congratulations to everyone involved in the launch of MECLA. It's such a timely and well-needed initiative. And I just want to spend a few minutes talking about some work we're doing with CFC on the opportunities for reducing the upfront embodied carbon in Australian buildings and infrastructure. So this report will be released mid-year. So this is just to give you an idea about the work that's been undertaken, because it really reinforces and aligns a lot of the almost everything that's on the MECLA agenda. So just switch slides here. So the aim of the report is really to provide Australia's building infrastructure sector, including focus on investors and asset owners and developers, with more quantified and practical guidance on how to reduce upfront embodied carbon, and also include the cost component here to see what's the reduction potential, but also the economic case of reducing upfront embodied carbon, which is relatively unexplored territory, really. And the alignment here is also then to generate more demand for low embodied carbon solutions, which is what this is all about, the transition and acceleration of the path to a low carbon economy. As mentioned, the report, the commissioner and leaders of this report is the CFC, but also with support from the Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia and the Green Building Council of Australia. So essentially, we've got access to all the data that's been generated through the rating tools for infrastructure and green buildings in the materials calculator in the ISCA case and the IS rating tool, and from the life cycle assessment credit with the Green Building Council of Australia. So that's from the GBCA alone, close to 200 LCAs that we've been able to mine across different asset classes, and for ISCA across a number of infrastructure classes such as road and rail, etc. And then we have a large number of case studies. You can see the logos on the page here. So lots of examples of what's already happening in industry on reducing the upfront embodied carbon aspect. I'm just going to hand over real quick to Sebastian from CFC, because he can spend a couple of seconds talking about some work that they've been doing on generating demand. Are you able to?
Thanks, Jonas. That's great. Hey, look, so everyone, this is a $95 million commitment from the CEFC to set new standards in industrial estates. This asset, of course, is not only highly energy efficient. We're looking to get 2 megawatts of solar on the roof, but our investment focus was on trying to green the construction materials, whereby Hesperia and the project team was able to deliver a 42% reduction in traditional concrete material. And because the CEFC is a for-purpose organisation, you will continue to set new and more ambitious targets for embodied carbon for all of our investments. and with a focus to move away from just material substitution to good upfront design and as well carbon neutral materials. And we're hoping this will help drive demand and innovation for new decarbonised materials. Thanks, Jonas.
Thanks, Ed. So some of the work we undertook here was to look at the size of the prize, as Hudson mentioned before, about what is the total size of the pie here in greenhouse gas emissions, but also in terms of economic activity. And the estimate, top down, bottom up, that we established was that the Australian construction material industry contributes between 30 to 50 megatons of carbon per year, which adds up to about 5 to 10% of Australia's total greenhouse gas emissions on an annual basis. So it's a significant part of the story just in the embodied impacts in the materials going into buildings and infrastructure. And the contribution to GDP is in the same order of magnitude. So it contributes about $65 billion per year just from the construction material industry alone, employing hundreds of thousands of people directly and indirectly. We're also importing a lot on top of this at the tune of about $10 billion and exporting very little overseas in terms of construction materials. And there's an increased share of that market that's looking for these low embodied carbon options. I mean, that's why we're all here today. And just a couple of one case study looking at the WestConnex projects here in Sydney, and looking at the size of materials and the quantity of materials they use, close to a million cubic meters of concrete and 150,000 tons of steel, and all the materials used on that project add up to almost $1 billion. And there are sustainability and low embodied carbon aspirations and requirement driving, and that's just one project. So we can very clearly call this a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for the Australian construction material industry to differentiate and supply those low embodied carbon solutions. Just quickly touch on, I won't read out everything on this slide, but what is possible in terms of reducing upfront embodied carbon from just in terms of what the manufacturing industry and the supply industry can do. And just point out that, for example, if all the building product and construction material supplies switch to green energy today, that would cut about 7 megatons of carbon per year. Science-based targets and setting decarbonisation targets aligned with the Paris Agreement would reduce between 3 to 9 million megatons of carbon per year. And we can go on and look at what if just 1 in 10 of projects go carbon neutral, or 1 in 10 projects use the lowest carbon material available without any material substitution, just selecting based on the lowest embodied carbon. There's a significant amount of reductions available from relatively clear-cut opportunities. So that's just to outline the size of the prize and what's possible, and that this is really just scratching the surface. There's much more depth in the report to drill into. But talking about it's not all just about what the manufacturers can do and switching to green power and carbon neutrality. It really starts with a system thinking in terms of how do we reduce embodied carbon, and there's a hierarchy of initiatives, starting with looking at reuse and adapting existing structures and buildings and extending life, and finding opportunities to build less and maximize the use of existing assets. And then we're getting down to where the reduction potential actually is lower, the more we go down to just being smarter about optimizing material use and selecting low carbon materials. And then when you get into actually the construction and build more efficient, etc., the reduction potential really goes down. And everyone has a role to play in this. Obviously, it's not just a supply chain issue. And I should mention as well, the report outlines the roles for different industry players, everything from government, procurement, regulators, investors, rating tool, building product manufacturer, project developers, engineers and designers, what role they can play. And we're also including this modular abatement cost curve for all the different asset classes that we looked at to put the economics behind the reduction as well. So for those that are not familiar with modular abatement cost curves, essentially it puts the reduction opportunities on what's the scale of how much can be reduced in terms of carbon emissions with different initiatives, and what's the cost per ton of reduction associated with each initiative. And that really helps put light on where you can save money whilst reducing carbon, and where there might be an added cost to the project associated with reducing the carbon. So carbon neutrality by buying offsets is one of those clear-cut. It's a way to reduce carbon, but it will cost you. There's many more initiatives that you should go after before that, where you actually can couple the economic benefits with the carbon outcomes. So really what we're trying to get to is getting to a point where we can start talking about what it would take to deliver zero embodied carbon projects, both from a financial and technical perspective, and maybe even go beyond zero and go carbon positive. And I feel like this is not a very well explored area at the moment when we're talking about the upfront embodied carbon bit. And what we've found is that, and this is probably a bit of a teaser and reason to read the report, is that there are really clear opportunities to get to zero upfront embodied carbon at zero cost. So you can essentially start driving towards zero upfront embodied carbon without necessarily adding cost to the project overall. So the report will be released mid this year, and I think it aligns perfectly with work with MECLA. So something to look forward to, and we're very excited to put this out there in the common domain. And thank you so much for CFC to taking the initiative and driving this work. It's really a sign of leadership and a much needed contribution to the knowledge space here. So thanks, CFC.
That's wonderful, Jonas, and Sebastian too. Thank you very much for chiming in there as well. Look, the willingness to share this and put it in the public eye, I think, is consistent with what we're seeing from ISCA, from GBCA, from the Supply Chain School, from GECA. The intellectual grunt that underpins this movement is so important, and having the data, whether that's in terms of tons of carbon to be abated, whether it's in costing, whether it's the engineering and the science, understanding the financial, the technical, and the process changes that are needed, all make up vital components of this movement that we are all part of. So, Jonas, really admire and appreciate your contribution to this. Thank you very much. Very much looking forward to reading that report. I think it will help inform action. It's not just about informing the debate anymore, it's informing action, and that's what we're about. So thank you. So your contribution with CFC and Lisa from Circular Economy, it's brilliant to have this broader context because of the complexity of what we're doing. We've talked, and the term circular, we've talked ecosystem. Yes, supply chain is part of it, but it simply isn't linear. Now, there was a term you used there, Jonas, upfront carbon. It's also one of the key terms that is being used in our video, because it kind of takes it takes some of the confusion out of, well, what's embodied carbon? If we think about it as upfront, I think that's a very clear way to communicate it. And by having that hierarchy of systems thinking that you've gone through, upfront carbon is where it can be avoided upfront. So thank you for that contribution. Please do stay involved. You're not off the hook. You're on speed dial from now on. Same with you, Lisa. Really look forward to engaging with you as we progress. Thank you both very much for your contributions today. All right. Well, look, this pretty much brings us to an end of part one of today, the launch. I have said, and I keep saying, we are a do tank. This was the sizzle, the excitement, and the launch. You can see our brand, you can see our logo, our color palette. Refer to our video. Please find us on LinkedIn, add that into your feeds, your chats. And we know that that's a very active community as well. So we'd love to have that promoted. If you are one of the participants today who was wanting to join us for the launch and see what this is about, see what your colleagues have been signing you up to and what's happening, thank you for your participation. We will now shift to part 2, and part 2 is very much that doing. So feel free to drop out if you're not going to stay for the do tank. Thank you for your participation and your interest. Now, part 2, a MECLA update. We, as has been said, and as I think everybody knows, because of how much you have been involved, we have been very busy, particularly in the form of working groups. Each working group has met over the last few weeks, has refined its purpose and its outputs. It's documented, the documents have been circulated in this agenda and will be shared also in the chat. The project control group, for anybody in the construction and building sector, will know about PCGs, and it's not dissimilar in this case. We're meeting with members of each, the chair and deputy of each working group, to coordinate, align, and also cross-pollinate where the groups can help each other. That group continues to meet, and we've had feedback on the progress and the refinement of goals. We're actually also setting up a subgroup looking to survey members to collect valuable data and information in a coordinated way. Many of the groups want to learn from the groups, learn from participants in MECLA, but rather than send off multiple surveys, we're coordinating to send out one, and the next meeting for that subgroup is on the 4th of May. We're planning some events, a procurement masterclass. I'll touch on that a bit later, but that'll be a really useful deep session into how innovative procurement can be the lever that we know it has potential to be. We will have a deep dive into the aluminium supply chain. We'll also hold a low carbon concrete event. And of course, June is case study month. We'll distribute a template to make that as easy as possible, but that's a great opportunity to share successes and lessons learned from wherever you are in our ecosystem, to spread the word, bust some myths, hopefully, and identify where big opportunities lie. We have established a governance framework. That's also an achievement of note, primarily because, as has been said, we are pre-competition. This is about growing the pie of opportunity around low carbon materials, zero carbon materials, not about each company fighting over their slice of the pie. And so at each MECLA meeting, the chairs will remind participants of our governance framework, and in particular remind that there is to be no anti-competitive behaviour. This is a reality of our industry. We must do this. I don't want to dwell on it too much because I think the ethos of the group is so positive, but it is vital that we address that need to ensure no anti-competitive behaviour. All right. And in the working groups, declaring any potential conflicts of interest is important. Many of us wear different hats. That's what happens in our careers and in our industries, in representative bodies as well as our day jobs. But please do note any conflicts. All right. Now, it's time to break into our work groups. I believe
we have established 8 working groups, and Zoom has a new feature where you can allocate in rather than us assigning you to a room. So I'm opening the rooms as we speak, and my understanding is something should pop up and you should be able to see one of the 8 and allocate in. Are you seeing anything?
We're seeing that in the message numbers for the group, so that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
I can't see the breakouts yet. So you all know which groups you're in. For those of you who've nominated to go into a couple of different groups, you'll just have to use your own discrimination to work that out.
How do we get into the room?
Breakout. So you have to go.
You click on the bottom where it says breakouts, and then it'll give you a menu to choose the right one.
breakouts. There we go. Good on you, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Oh, how do you actually get in? How do you actually get in?
Join.
I'm just
Hover your
clicking on it.
cursor over the number
Yeah.
next to the room. So you'll see like 1 demand side response and then the
Yes,
number
but
of
I'm
people.
clicking that and nothing's happening.
Okay.
How do I do?
I can potentially allocate you.
Would you mind? Because I'm clicking evaluation framework group
If
2 and
you
I'm not going
go
in.
to more at the bottom, there is an option to go to breakouts there.
Yeah, I've got that and I've
That's-
got the rooms all up on the menu, but I can't get into the room.
Okay, I will try and
Can
assign
you
you now.
hover your cursor over the number to the right and join might come up?
I've just also assigned you.
That's the trick. Thanks.
Linda, I can't see that little link at all.
Okay, Martin. What group would you like to join? And
I'm in group 4.
Group 4. Okay, let me assign you.
Thanks.
So just reiterating, if you look on the bottom navigation bar where the 3 dots for more are, you can connect, open there and enter the breakout rooms from there.
Sorry to add to the list. I also don't have these.
Which group would
dots
you
down
like
the
to go
bottom.
to?
Group number 1, please, guys.
Sorry, who was that? I just missed.
Ash Baker,
Ash.
group number 1.
Oh,
Ash, I will put you into group 1.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, group 1, Sam Donaldson, please.
Sam Donaldson, group 1. No problem, Sam.
Jody Vincent, group 1, please.
Jody, group 1.
Felipe for group 1 too, please.
Sorry, I missed that one. Who was that?
Felipe, F-E-L-I-P-E.
Felipe.
And Claire Thorstensen for group 3.
Was that, no, hang on, Felipe, I can't see your name coming up.
Peter Rooks for group 1, please.
Okay, Peter, put you in group 1.
Christoph for group
Sorry,
4.
just checking Felipe has been allocated.
Philippe is still here.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. Okay, group 1. Okay, sorry, who was next?
Claire Thornstonston.
Into
group
3.
Group 3.
Thanks, Claire. Group 3.
Christoph Bayavaji, group 4, please.
Christoph, group 3.
Thanks.
Scott Munter, group 5.
Scott, group 5.
Thank you.
Renee Tapley, group 3, please.
Renee, group 3. You're in.
Megan Sargent, group 7, please.
Megan Sargent, group 7.
Kathy Inglis, group 8.
Kathy Inglis, group 8.
Philippa Stone for group 5A, I think it is still.
Yeah, it's 5.
Yes.
Philippa.
Thanks, Philippa. Anyone else? Simone?
Simone O'Sullivan, group 6, please.
Group 6. Wonderful.
Suzanne, group 2, thanks.
Suzanne
Pierce.
Group 2.
Thanks.
Thank you, Suzanne.
It's Anna Shalunka. Can I go to group 2, please?
Yes, absolutely, Anna.
Thank you.
Belinda, it's Krista here. I just sent you a chat as well. Can you please put me in group 3?
Okay, perfect, Krista. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, would you like to go to 1?
Hi, Belinda. It's Michael here. Sorry. If I can go into the steel group, please.
Michael Dawson?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Paul, sorry, I missed. Did you?
Yeah, group 1's great. Thank you.
Group 1.
And Deo, I can't remember which group. Deo. Or Cyril. Probably Evan has gone into your group.
Is there
Cement.
anyone left that would like to be allocated?
Eileen, you've just joined us. We're just going into working groups now, so I don't know which working group you're in off the top of my head.
Yes, apologies for my my lateness here.
That's all right.
I've only actually just seen your email last night now, so the working groups, I don't think I've actually registered for an actual working group.
Okay, I'll put that back in the chat for you, and you can then make a decision which of the working groups you want to go to. There we go. And Stuart, are you interested in going into a working group? One of the materials one? I'm not sure where Vina went to. I'm curious why some people couldn't see the breakout. It's really interesting, isn't it?
So I had a quick Google just before we went in here. Like you have to, it depends on the version of Zoom.
Okay.
So if people's version of Zoom's not necessarily up to date, it may not be, the feature doesn't work as easily.
I see.
So it's hard to, that one's hard. Please update your Zoom before joining. Elaine, did you want to join? Have you decided which one you would like to join? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yep, the materials one.
And which materials, which is right?
Well, timber, we're all about wood.
Timber?
So there's one about
number
other materials.
Yeah.
Thank you. So aluminium's our lowest group.
Yes. I might just step into that one. I'm just going to have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, sure. So yeah, we've got in summary, we've got a whole bunch in number 1, like 20. Same in 2, right. 15 in 3, about 10 in 4, about 10 in 5, quite a lot in the steel one, concrete one, 2 in aluminium, and about 10 in other materials. So really it's just aluminium that we're light on.
Okay.
So,
it's Suzanne. Just we're trying to be in group 2, but we don't seem to have been moved there.
So this is under DISA, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And into group 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hope the working group chairs have got their tasks ready. This is good.
And so, Monica, you want to be assigned to the aluminium?
I think I would like to go into 7. Yes, please.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
And Hudson, how long, so are we staying in the working groups for?
We'll do half an hour. I think originally we thought 45, but there's been so much work done. I think let's go with half an hour and then maybe just check in with the groups.
Yes, do that.
Hi, it's Anita. Can I please go to group 3?
Anita, group 3, the build knowledge base. Yes, I'm joining you now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Reasonably smooth to transition to pick your own.
Yeah.
But not perfect either. At least they established. I wonder if it's because there was 150 and there was 50 breakout rooms. It just had a moment.
Oh, well, lesson learned. Maybe that's not something we can do
for such large groups. But I wonder if that's a thing or whether that was just a one-off. Maybe it's my technology, my computer, or who knows. But the 8 breakout groups were fine. That created no problem.
That's good.
Did we get a registration form, Hudson, on entry? Do you know? Monica ticked that box. No, I don't think it did because I didn't register myself when I entered.
No, I didn't either. I just entered.
Yeah. I've just got numbers. I didn't actually, like I've just, you know, I saw it sort of peaked at about 158.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I might pop back in 10 minutes and put myself on.
For future instructions for people, I note that if you go into the breakout room pop-up box and then hover your cursor over the room that you like, where the number is in blue, if you put the cursor over that, you have the option to join yourself.
Okay, so you go down to the bottom. So as soon as I open, so that wasn't available until I opened the rooms, and then you went down, and then there was 8 options available, and you can select. So it needs to highlight in blue to allocate in.
Yeah, and then it's just join, and people can self-select at that
But
point.
you need a version. I think it's like 5.6, whatever the latest version is.
Right. Okay.
We'll have to self-assign. Yeah, good to have that exact instructions for people.
Yes. All right.
That's a new one for me too.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks, Hudson. I'll be back.
Yeah, thanks.
Belinda? Belinda?
Bill, there was only a couple of us in aluminium, so we've come back.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
There you go.
I'm good. How are you?
Apple nice day.
It is a beautiful day. So did Monica join your group as well?
Yeah, briefly, just gave us an update on as a planned event for May. So we shared that with
okay.
Megan and Natalia from Lendlease.
Okay, perfect. I've just had someone join, Jackie.
Yeah, apologies. I got kicked out of my breakout room and I'm just trying to find my way back in.
That is okay. What room were you in? I can pop you back in, I think.
I'm in 2. I can get back in there. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I had an ability to jump between breakout rooms, but I don't seem to have that now. Oh, there you go. Join breakout room. I'm just going to go and have a look around.
Okay, yeah, just
So I
let
think
me
we've got another 7 minutes to go.
Yeah, right. So 11:10. So should I just broadcast that message, say approximately?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah.
Go?
Hi, did we lose our breakout team? Where's the rest of our team, or am I in a different?
It's so 20 seconds and everyone will be back. There was a 1 minute countdown, but I think if you click the button, it brings you straight back. Here comes everyone now.
All right. Thanks for marshalling everybody, Belinda. Terrific. I think we're all coming back now.
Great.
All right. We've got everyone.
I think so, Hudson.
So, okay. Fantastic. Well, look, thank you everybody for your contribution in those working groups. It's really where the doing is happening, and the chair's taking the lead. Thank you to you. I realise that it's refining and it's nominating when things are going to be done. To that, I think it'd be great to have a quick summary from each group back to the broader alliance, just to let us know where the groups are at. So could I ask from group 1 demand side response, somebody to pop up your hand and just give us a 2-minute elevator pitch on where you're at, what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Hudson. I'm standing in for Anne at the moment, so just chucked in the deep end here. But the really great thing about our workshop just now is that we're all coordinated about how we're going to approach the survey. We have a really concise list of potential questions that we're going to refine over the next few days in order to present that on the 4th of May with the rest of the groups involved in that. And yeah, we're looking for input from the rest of our working group leading up to that as well. We're locking in the next 2 meetings that we have, which will either be at the end of May, depending on those survey results, and then a June follow-up meeting that we're trying to decide whether how we manage it physically or virtually. So we're looking for input on how we could potentially do it in person, because we think it'd be great to get together physically in 3D. So that would be a 3-hour session where we consolidate all of the survey results and come up with the next steps. So before we tackle the next phase, because we have 2 key milestones for July that we want to hit.
Great, thank you, Daniel. It's great to have milestones set out. That's how things get done. So thank you very much. Working group 2, defining a best practice embodied carbon evaluation framework. Who's going to pop their hand up for that?
Yeah, thanks.
Caroline?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, so some key questions that our group want to bring back again to the group, just confirming that operating carbon is out of our scope. Hudson?
Hudson's nodding. You're muted.
Yes, I'm nodding. Yeah, upfront carbon, embodied carbon, not operating.
Good, okay. And then there was also a query about the full scope upfront, which we're defining as A1 to A5, that B, C and D is not on our agenda, or is?
Should be.
Jeremy, can I bring you into that conversation? Just based on the conversation we're having in working group 4.
Nicole,
sorry, Nicole as well.
Yep. So in terms of working group 2, something that we've been talking about in working group 4, which is about common language for specifications, is that we really need to be able to settle on methodologies and benchmarks to then be able to import into those common language frameworks. So is that something that we're looking that working group 2 will be able to provide out of this series of work?
I think so, but the question from our team is in terms of defining the measures, so we have discussed, for example, we were talking about in the sub tasks that we've identified, what can we learn from, say, the ATO in terms of service life that is well entrenched into economic and financial instruments in this country about, you know, how many years do you depreciate a piece of equipment or a building over, for example, through the ATO service life schedules, and to potentially look at, are they suitable for adoption, which would then give you the use phase B. And then the question is just what happens end of life, and how, if that is a question that we need to also focus on at this point in time.
Sorry, this is really confusing because upfront carbon is getting us to the gate in terms of using the materials. All of that is confusing what we're actually trying to address in upfront carbon. So my comment was that and similar to Nicole's, is for us to be able to make it easy to specify and procure low carbon materials. We need the benchmark and approach to help us use those outputs from your working group to actually put that into those guidance materials for those materials, for us to define it adequately. Looking at kind of the operational and other aspects will actually lose us focus around the aspect that the intent of MECLA from my perspective. So
fantastic. That's fine. We just want
confusing
to know.
Beyond anything to bring the other service life issues into it. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense, and happy for others to provide input into that.
I think that's fine, particularly with the resources that we have, but to just keep that upfront component. That's cool. And then
Caroline, sorry if I can just, because we were discussing this just now in group 3 as well, because, you know, it is relevant to how do you gather information. And I think what we discuss is that the focus about the information should be about enabling decision making as soon as possible in the process. And I think that our outcome was, you know, A1 to A5, so, you know, all the product and construction is the focus, but we should still leave a space for B and C to provide information when it will be available, because, you know, the life cycle of whatever asset it is, you know, depends, is going to influence a lot of the B and C. So the demolition, but also the operation replacement, the reparation, how long a material lasts in its life. So I think that's something that as a framework we should keep, but maybe I agree with Jeremy, is not a focus for this first part.
I just might add to that. I think whole of life carbon is definitely preferable just to upfront carbon. What I mean by that is comparing like for like. So if I'm comparing an asphalt road with a concrete road, the concrete is going to have vastly more embodied carbon, but it only needs to be replaced at 100 years. The asphalt will have a fraction of the embodied carbon, but it needs to be replaced every 25 years. I don't want to just pick asphalt every time because the embodied carbon of the first time it's laid is less than concrete.
Okay, so then that comes back to the discussion that we're having in terms of service life standardization. So we've got that on our agenda, so we can actually, you know, if we would look at service life, what are the appropriate service life assumptions that should be adopted for infrastructure, material, building, then I'm happy to add that. I hear what Jeremy's saying, and I don't want to slow this whole thing down, but it just seems that these 3 questions keep coming up in our group, and we just want to be able to nail just, you know, what's the common view of everybody, because we need to not continue to be stuck in these 3 questions. We just want to nail them and get going. So that's all. So if we're happy to, if our team is happy to look at service life and provide some guidance around what is an Australian suitable service life for elements and or materials, then I guess we could include that and share that with everybody. And then it can be used or not used, but I'm sort of also conscious of scarce resources chasing down questions. So I think, and the other thing was just really, we're just reiterating in our group that we are at 3, we're at the product, the building and infrastructure is going to be the focus as well, because there's some question there were some key questions around, should we just be looking at the individual building product and material, but I think from all of the other sort of opponents in the room that we're looking at those three. Ideally, our team will get back together, hash things out. I like the idea of getting into a room and then progressing.
Jeremy?
I'm again just trying to clarify here. We're actually trying to solve product adoption, and I mean, there's no question we need to look at whole of life and the whole of life cycle assessment of buildings and infrastructure. But the whole point we're doing in terms of MECLA was actually focusing on the materials and the elements to help us define what is a low carbon material. So those other aspects are important, but we've got to solve one element at a time, and those things, that's much, much broader than the MECLA's agenda in trying to actually solve the barriers of adoption of low carbon materials in that regard. So I'm just, it's probably a question back for the PCG.
I guess it is a big question at the PCG, because I thought we had sort of discussed that a couple of times at the PCG in relation to the whole of industry participating, and it wasn't just necessarily limited to building products, but maybe that's changed.
Okay, look, I think this is, this really gets to the nub of what we're on about. Let's take that to the PCG. We may need to convene a session just to talk that through. I recognise there's a creative tension there that we need to resolve, but I welcome the rigour in the discussion. In the interest of time, let me move on. Thank you, Caroline, and I know Lauren's also helping drive that working group. Thank you both. Let me go to working group 3 for some an update. Building and capturing the knowledge base. Who would like to talk to that?
I'm happy to speak to that. We actually spent probably more time introducing new members. I think we had 3 of our normal regular group and maybe 10 to 12 new. So that was good, and some really good people coming along, and hopefully they'll join us. A lot of our discussion was probably already talked about just now, is around how do we measure. Obviously, working group 2's input is important in that. Obviously, as most know, Marlene's already prepared a survey which is ready to go. I believe the discussion is going to happen around adding that to other group surveys potentially in the next few weeks. The biggest income and the biggest, I guess, outcome and the biggest concern around that we had is not making that survey too big. So I'm happy to discuss offline, but potentially there is an opportunity to send what we've got out right now and then follow up with something else from one of the other groups later on if we thought. I also don't want to delay it too long, but I'll take that offline. That probably covers most of what we did. We have also got a couple of templates together already for the case study in preparation for the case study month. I've asked the group to share any further ones that they like, so that in our next meeting we'll discuss that, or prior to our next meeting, working group meeting, we'll discuss those and come back to the PCG with what we believe is a great template we can use for the case studies. Which we think is a really important step, because it's something that shows that we're producing, I guess, some work from the group as a whole, from MECLA as a whole. That's it.
Thank you, Scott. I think the case study template is going to be an important thing to get right, and then a great tool for everybody to be able to contribute back to. So thank you. Group 4, Jeremy and Nicole.
Nicole's going to do an update, I think.
Leading that, maybe Nicole.
I'm handballing to Nicole today.
All right.
Look out. Look, let's just make this really brief. We mentioned earlier that we're looking to do a collaborative effort to gather background information, and that is something that Hudson mentioned. There is a coordination meeting in a couple of weeks on what we are looking to do is actually to make the most use of the brains trust that we have in working group 4 and broader across MECLA, to make sure that we can gather together the information that we already know from diverse sources, and then use that as a springboard to be able to then encourage the adoption of low carbon building materials. And so in our group, we've been talking about how to actually frame up collecting that information and collaborating to pull that together. And that is something that I think the broader MECLA will see in future time. Jeremy, was there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I think we've got a pretty good handle on the contributions within the working group, and just how we'll interface with the other working groups is probably still just a question, because we are, as I said before, heavily reliant on some of the outputs from other groups to make sure that we're informed around how do we look at what we've collected through external sources versus the knowledge and wisdom out of the other working groups, to make sure that they're considered in how we frame the material that our working group puts together. So thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole and Jeremy. Now, the group 5 is broken into the different materials. The steel group, could somebody pop their hand up for a quick feedback?
Yep, quite happy to. We're working together on delivering 4 outcomes, and as soon as we've got the case study template, we've got that on our agenda to put up some case studies as well. We've got regular half-hour check-in meetings scheduled in everyone's calendars, and send out weekly reminders to everyone to keep on track with those 4 targets, looking to deliver. The first of all is just getting some common industry knowledge across the board and understood for frequently asked questions in this space around defining things like green steel and why can't we have it now and things like that, but quite happy to chat through everybody offline if there's any more details. And yeah, happy to work with other groups as we move through. Is that quick enough for you, Hudson?
That was very thorough and quick. Thank you, Hayley. Very good. The concrete and cement group.
Hi, I'll talk from here. So we focused on the same mid-year event, like we're trying to target the demonstration of performance of low carbon concrete via the case studies. So we are waiting for the template from group 3A. Thank you, 3. Thank you for that. And well, we talked about what should be covered by the event. We talked like we are trying to target to include councils, senior engineers, procurements, and construction engineers. And we also had a conversation about creating an education piece with MECLA, which would be which would target senior project engineers and construction engineers. Basically, well, the education piece should cover giving. It should just give confidence for the engineers to, make sure that the low carbon concrete is acceptable in technical perspectives, and basic engineering and technology should be explained in that piece. So yeah, that's all we discussed.
Dipali, thank you very much. That's terrific. I think your group, obviously with the steel as well, but with knowing just how broadly we use the materials, concrete and cement, obviously no pressure, but a big job. So thank you. Thank you.
Hudson, sorry, can I jump in really quickly?
Yep.
Just Dipali, we're actually going through that process internally to have a report done on concrete and show that 30 to 50% cement reduction won't present any adverse structural impacts. But we've also looked at the Beyond Zero Emissions Future of Concrete report. So it might be worthwhile having a look at that and seeing whether that has enough technical detail. Otherwise, I can check whether we're happy to just share the report that we've commissioned.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Joe, thanks for that additional input. The aluminium group, I know was small, but is it worth hearing just where that's at?
Yeah, I can do that unless Megan, you'd like to.
No, you can take it away. We're happy with that.
Thank you. Just the two of us in the aluminium group, though. Monica popped in to give us an update on plans. Margie from the Aluminium Council is the right person. She was on but had to drop off. So Megan and Natalia from Lend-Lease, and there's certainly an appetite in low carbon aluminium for facades, particularly in the Barangaroo projects. So it was more of a dot connection exercise there, and as I understand it, there's a detailed session coming up in May, which all the right people will be at, and it's really about connecting the supply side to what seems to be decent demand for low carbon aluminium in the building sector.
Terrific. Thank you, Ben. Yes, that event in May will be great. The last group, other materials, timber, bricks, asphalt, recycled and reformed materials. Who can talk to that one briefly?
That's me, Hudson. Katie, how are you going?
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, likewise, we actually spent a little bit of time introducing some fantastic new members as well. So that's really encouraging, because that's actually one of our outcomes we see as another materials group, is to actually build that network and provide, so I guess, the technical experts and the information to the other groups. And that's where our value lies. Likewise, well, once we get that case study template from Scott's team, then we're starting to populate that with some really innovative information from our representatives. As a bit of a task to everyone that was jumping into that group today, we've sort of would like to go out and start to build our network. So reaching out to people we know and try to build the membership of MECLA and start to really broaden and diversify the materials that we're representing at the moment. So that's where we're at the moment. I think by the end of this financial year, we would just like to see a broad, diverse representation that we can then that will provide the base and then build from there. So that's where we see it going.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And I know the other Katie also working in that working group. So thank you both very much. So look, that's bringing us to the end of our session. A couple of things to say. Clearly, I want to set up an offline conversation very quickly. Caroline Group 2 and Jeremy Group 4, there's a definitional and a scope question we need to resolve. So let's have a positive conversation about that either this week or early next week. We'll get onto that and get it resolved. The other things I wish to say, founding partners who wish to be on the PCG or the leadership group, we've got space for a couple of people in each, so please get in touch with Monica about that. And to talk to you about our pipeline. I think most things have been touched on already, but we will be holding a procurement masterclass in coming months. We understand procurement is a gatekeeper to review and submit proposals between organisations. So, and in our case, it's sometimes a barrier to innovation. Often for very good reasons, but we need to overcome those barriers. So how can we better align and justify proposals that are in line with these MECLA objectives? One of our founding partners, Christophe Barriere from BVW Global, he's a procurement specialist of 25 years. He will run that session. He also interviewed Monica and me for a procurement podcast, a link that we can distribute. It's flying around on LinkedIn as well. But he will lead a procurement masterclass. Christophe, are you there for a very brief?
Yes, I'm here in my new Telsa fully LPG car. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so what I wanted to talk about is, first of all, whether or not there is an interest in joining those sessions. And it's not just me presenting the information, but it's also gathering the type of questions that you may be encountering when you are writing proposal to organization, especially when you're dealing with new materials or new innovative ways of engaging a client. So the three main aspects is talking about how do we engage with the client around procurement in a collaborative way. And it's not just selling the project, it's also maintaining and maintaining that relationship across the entire life cycle of the contract. So making sure that collaborative procurement is set up right up front to do that. The second part is the performance framework on how, what, and how are our measure of success to establish that relationship, first of all, and to monitor and make sure that the ongoing improvement of that new design, that new product, that new composite is actually being monitored and reported in order to on-sell to other potential buyers or government agencies. And lastly, and this is not an easy one, is how do we often move from a prescriptive to a non-prescriptive tendering process, where you very often have a series of questions that you have to answer, but there's a small section about alternative or alternate proposal. But this can take a life of its own when you're dealing with composite materials or new ways of doing things. And it's a matter of present.
I seem to have lost Christoph there.
The information to ensure it's prescriptive to make sure that the common focus is not necessarily the buyer or the seller, but the end consumer, which in our case is the users or potentially society as a whole with carbon emission. So definitely keen to run a broad discussion or masterclass, if you want to call it that. And but I will also welcome any questions you may have before that, so we can address those specifically. So it can be specific to each, individual or organizations.
Great, thank you, Christoph. Let's send out some communications beforehand, just to gauge where people are at and what questions they may have from their area. But again, a good practical session to build skills and find answers. So thank you for bringing your expertise to bear, Christoph. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being part of this. Yeah.
All right, so June is case study month, as you have heard. Stay tuned for templates. And this is a great opportunity to put forward success stories and lessons learned. We will have a deep dive into aluminium in May. We have a cement event coming as well. And really, I think there is so much momentum here. I'm really pleased that so many of you are contributing. I really did get goosebumps with the, it's probably just the music, but the vibe of that video really just hit the nail on the head. That's what we're about. Thank you very much for the effort. This is on top of everybody's day jobs. I know that, but this is how stuff happens. Today's Earth Day. By the end of the day, we'll have news back from the Biden conference. And the best bit is this is apolitical action that we are just bloody getting on with. So thank you. Thank you very much. Monica, have you got anything you would like to add before we sign off?
I've put in the chat a link to the WWF website. So please, in your organisation, social media, do what you can to link to that. I'll put again the MECLA LinkedIn page. So if you could sort of find that, find me, and that will help to support and share some of the knowledge and the case studies that you come across. And if you want to use the logo, the MECLA logo, we'll use it together collectively. There are some guidelines for doing that. Otherwise, Hudson, I think I'll be in touch. And terrific to work with you all to bring it to this point, and really excited to see what we can do together. Radical collaboration, I think it's called.
Yeah, radical collaboration, some stubborn optimism. Let's keep it moving. Thank you, everybody. Fantastic.
Thank
you. Good on you, Hudson. Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Well done. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Monica, if you're still there.
I will be here. I'm going to stay on until
everyone disappears.
Everybody disappears.
I've updated the school's website with the new logo, and the video is already up there as well.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, you're so good.
I was doing that while Jonah was talking, so it's ready to go.
Right. That's fantastic. So we can link to that as well. That's great.
Yeah, and if anyone comes through with things they want to add to resources and knowledge sharing, just flick them to my email and I can add them onto that page. That's no drama. Part of the working group, one of our actions was actually to create the template for us to start creating all these materials in. So in the drive, I've actually created, we found that PowerPoint's probably the best one to use for doing it because everyone has that software and you can do graphics really easily in it, but it's set up as an A4 page. But if you want to flick me the branding and guidelines and the actual, like the colors, like the numbers of the colors.
That's in the guidelines, in the branding guidelines.
All right, cool. Has it got the fonts in there as well that you've used?
It has that, yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll update that document.
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll try and match it. It'll be all good. But it'll be the template's already on the drive, so I'll just update that, and then when that's ready, the groups can start using that to create things.
That's great. That's
another thing to add. I have copied and pasted everyone's comments regarding our discussion. So I'll send that as an email through to the product control group so we can. Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren.
It sounds like we need to deal with that. I mean, is it going to be solvable? I guess that's the.
Well, it depends who it comes from.
You can see the chat. You can see the
yeah.
chat with service life, no service life up front. It's
It just
obviously
depends
a
on-
really big contentious issue, and honestly, we don't want to be rocks here. We just got to, how do we frame to progress